So I'd like to ask a question, Harishchandra ji.
Yes.
Yeah, no, pehli baat hai, namaste. Yeah, this is regarding Antakaran Chatushtya. The foursome, internal foursome, Antakaran Chatushtya. So the question is, looks like all the actions are done through the Antakaran Chatushtya. What does Atma do other than facing the consequences, feeling the pain and joy? So looks like there is no part that Atma plays. All the functions are done by only the Chatushtya, Antakarana Chatushtya.
Okay. Okay. For the benefit of all our others, the participants, the just this term may be new to some of you. So-called Antakaran Chatushtay. This is as I said, as a human being, we have three extraordinary powers, but we need the instruments of body and mind to exercise those powers. So when it comes to our instruments, we have basically two instruments. One is this body, and other is a subtle instrument that is called as mind. Now, mind has a detailed in Vedic terminology, so we will not go into detail at this point because the focus of the question is something else, and that itself is a big topic. If somebody is
Sure.
interested in, we can take it up in some other session. At this point, body is called as Bahya Karana, outer instrument, and the mind is called as Antahkarana, inner instrument, because that is subtle. But please bear in mind, in today's mainstream terminology, our brain is considered as mind as well as our, our, so to say, our consciousness, is it not? If something is happening in my brain, the doctor will say, I am conscious at this time. So the mainstream terminology is slightly different. In Vedic terminology, within my brain, very deep inside, somewhere in the cortex, there is a very small cave that is called as Hridaya or Hridayakash. So in that tiny cave, myself, my Atma Tattva is residing. And that closest to it is an envelope of mind. At this point, we will not go more into detail of that mind. That mind only the questioner has asked. He has referred to my mind as Antakaran Chatushtay. This terminology can be discussed in detail at some other time. At this point, the question is, if the owner of the mind, the self, the Atma, so to say, also is called as Purush. So in our philosophy, that owner, like me, is Purush. Purush, not to be confused with in Hindi, Purush will mean male human being. But here, Purush is that consciousness, that Atma Tattva, which all of us have our own, is it not? So the question here was, if there is any, we know the so-called law of karma. Of course, the whole natural world is governed by the laws of physics, but we all, human beings, animals, birds, our atmas, why was I born in a particular family on a particular date and time? That supreme manager is governing all of us in accordance with the law of karma. Is that okay? So material world is governed by the law of physics and all the natural laws, whereas we all beings are governed by the law of karma. And in common man language, we know it, what you reap, you sow. So what goes around comes around, is it not? So but in Vedic terminology, this is stated as all my good action, and that good action there is a term for that, is called dharma. Dharma here does not mean religion. Dharma is what is treated as universally acceptable action. If I steal somebody money, universally it will not be regarded as a right conduct, is it not? Then that is adharma. If I help a needy, if there is an injured person on a street, I take him to a hospital, whole world will say that was the right thing to do. So that was dharma. So dharma here is not, what is in the religions, etc. Dharma is universal, acceptable code of conduct, something like that. So if I do dharma, then I will be rewarded in terms of sukha. Sukha means joy and pleasure and happiness, whatever you call it. And if I do something which is contrary to dharma, in other words, if that is adharma, then I will be going through something which is painful. Now, this is the broad statement of law of karma. But there are a lot of details because the rewards of karma does not come instantaneously, not always. There is a lot of time gap. So, law of karma, we are told, is kind of in physics, there is a Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty that says that either you can measure the mass of a particle or its momentum, not both at the same time, is it not? So that is a universal statement that either we know this or that. We cannot know both the things. So in a scientific community, both the things cannot be knowable together, is it not? In the same manner, from Vedic scientist point of view, law of karma is undecipherable, unknowable for us in total sense. Why? In total sense, in the sense, today if I am inflicted with some pain, there is nobody in the world who can say for what particular action I am getting this reward, particularly because certain rewards come after, maybe that is coming due to the previous life, or maybe due to the thousands of lives ago, I might have gathered something which is giving me reward now, is it not? So in that sense, Sankhya makes a statement, Shrishti Vachitrat, it's such a wondrous world where all kinds of things are happening to all of us, but we cannot exactly know what is the cause of what I am going through, is it not? Today's my pleasure or today's my pain is due to what cause, what was the action I did in some life. Nobody in the world can ever know it. So this is theoretically unknowable. But it does not mean there is no law of karma.
Where is
There
it?
is a law of karma, but I cannot know exactly this. Now the question was, this is all peripheral things. The question was, the Purush, the owner of mind, is being rewarded for an action, whereas the action was performed not by him, but by his mind. Is it not? So the question was, when my mind and body are doing the certain action, why am I held responsible? Why am I held accountable? Why I have to go through the rewards of it, pleasure or pain, whatever it is? The answer is very simple. In day-to-day world, if I hit somebody, if I shoot somebody with a gun, the court will not give punishment to the gun. Court will punish the person who has fired the gun, is it not? So he will say, the judge will say that you had full control over the functioning of the gun, you pressed the trigger, so you are held accountable. So this logic has to go inward. So the questioner's question is valid, but even here, the Vedic rishis give an answer. They say, because after all, the Atma is considered as Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta. that is aparinami. It doesn't go through any change whatsoever. Just like I don't go through much change when I press the trigger of a gun, is it not? But anyway, I have caused an event for which, of course, must be held responsible. So in the same manner, they give an analogy that is the best answer available in the Vedic literature. The this is a matter. Law of karma has been discussed by Patanjali in Philosophy of Yoga Darshan. In second chapter, there are 4 or 5 statements. They come together, and there the commentary comes from Vyas, and he says his response is he raises the same question, and then he says, like in the world, the victory and defeat in a battleground is gained by the soldiers, but the same thing, namely the victory and defeat, is treated as that of the king. So the soldiers are affiliated with a particular king. They are obeying the commands of the king, and in a battleground, the soldiers are victorious or they are defeated. That same is attributed to that of the king, though he was not in the battleground, he is probably in his palace, is it not? The same thing applies to the Purush here. He is, but his command is followed by his mind, and so he is held accountable. So that is the answer to this question.
So is the Purusha giving the commands, or just or the intellect, Buddhi is giving the commands?
Actually, the Purush is giving the command. His Buddhi is more like his prime minister, who is advising him, who is opening out all the options and what will be the consequences. Finally, using his intellectual faculty, he is selecting the option which he thinks is most suitable at that time. So, he gives the command, like the king gave the command to his forces, and he, of course, consulted his prime minister at that time.